Welcome, everyone. It is the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined us. My name is Whitney out of Davenport's Office of Advancement. I am our Director of Alumni and Donor Engagement, and we are excited to be kicking off our first Davenport Dialogues of the year. And I will be teeing up Andrew here. So Andrew, while I am doing this, you are welcome to share your screen. This is recorded as well. So if you have somebody, if you get done with this and you wanted to share this information with anyone, we post all of our Davenport Dialogues on the website where you registered. We have 3 more that are upcoming, 1 every month. So feel free to take a look at those and get registered for those as well. And this can always be found on that page if you want to go back and reference it. So with that being said, Andrew, I gave you co-hosting admins there, so feel free. And this is Andrew Weiss. He graduated in 2015. He's the founder and CEO of Battle Brothers Shaving Company. We are very excited to have you, Andrew.
Hey, thanks. I'm excited to share some of what I learned. I kind of want to share a little bit about how I got started and how I'm operating now with working full-time, yet having a successful business, why I chose to do that, and then kind of highlight 10 things I wish I knew while working full-time, having a family, flipping a house. I've got 1 kid now and a baby in like 2 weeks. So the excuse of I'm too busy does not apply to me. And I think it's anyone can overcome that if you kind of get a couple things in order, and we'll talk about that. So Battle Brothers started on my first deployment to Iraq. I was a helicopter crew chief for medical evacuation. And while out on some forward operating base, I had the senior sergeant who shaved with this old school razor. And I made fun of him all the time, constantly ribbing him, right? And then he showed me how to use the razor and a brush and soap and all this stuff. And it was the best shave of my life. Long story short, I started collecting different products from around the world, diving into this hobby and self-care. And then when I got out of the military, I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if I took what I learned as a hobby and spun a business out of it? And so that's kind of how it all got started. Like, how many people here are thinking about starting a business? They have started one, or like just seeking knowledge on where to begin with this stuff? Show me some reactions. Like, how many are there? I actually can't see if there's reactions.
We've got Lisa raised her hand. We've
Perfect. Yeah. It's terrifying, it's scary, there's a lot going on. Yeah, I started kind of in the same spot. Like, where do I begin? What do I do? How do I do this? I have so much going on in my life. Like I mentioned, I've got a family. I'm working full time. I just graduated Davenport University, with this new degree. What do I do with it? And so basically what I did was start small, right? And so here, let's get to that next slide. Oh, first, I skipped the first one. First, you want to start right now. Like, start right now. Where do you start, right? Maybe that just means understanding articles of like confederation with an LLC or an S Corp. Like, start with that process. Maybe start building a website. You've got an idea. Definitely just start, because every year it gets harder and harder and harder. It's more competitive. It gets crazier, whether you're starting a product business like mine, or you want to do a service or something like that. Just starting is my first tip. My dad always says, an inch by inch, the job is a cinch. It's a silly saying, but it's true. I started in 2016. And I didn't even sell anything until 2018. And I didn't really do well until 2019. So it took 2 to 3 years before I actually started seeing sales. And it's because I had so many steps to take along the way. And starting small was really, really critical for me. Just like one product. I think I started with 3 products which at the time was overwhelming, right? I don't recommend, if you can help it, fewer the better for sure. You want to be able to test the market, because I didn't have any outside capital. So unless you've got like big pockets or some kind of investor, which I'm going to assume in this that you're not, I'm just kind of sharing from my side of the story, right? So I didn't have investors. I didn't have anyone. I just had my personal life savings, a little bit of money I had in like a 401k that I just withdrew and everything to start this. And if I could go back in time, I would have started smaller with one product, but instead I think 3 or 4, I believe it was, and it was a bit too much. So the problem you get with starting too big, to me, would be the cash flow, right? Managing your in and out of, you've got all these sales coming, but you've got to manage inventory. As simple as it might sound, with just a few products, it can get overwhelming quickly, because there's so many other expenses that go into your business, right? You got websites, services, email marketing, pay-per-click ads. So you're definitely going to want to test that market, and also become a subject matter expert. Man, if I knew how much I had to know back then, I would have done things differently. For example, when I started manufacturing my first product, my razor there, you see standing on some concrete, I probably approached 80 or 90 different manufacturers around the world, and then ultimately found one right in my backyard here in Grand Rapids. So just about 30 minutes from my home, ended up finding the right company. So I kind of got lucky there. But when I approached them, I had this great idea, right? I have this idea. They're like, yeah, you have a CAD drawing? Do you have a step file? How do you want this manufactured? Do you want it tapped? Do you want it screwed? It's like, oh man, that I did not know enough about. So I had to become an expert in manufacturing my own product, an expert in industry products that I already kind of had. But just like really knowing your niche is really, really important to talking to business partners, possible investors, and your customers. Today's age, people want content that makes them trust you and understand why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's a big part of the know, like, trust, buy process. And so that's something that I wish I knew. Having realistic expectations when you begin is really critical, because if you don't, you're going to burn yourself out. That's going to be your first pitfall. You're going to be diving into your niche or your business or your service. And if you don't have realistic expectations of how many orders you might get, or leads, or people that use your service or product, you're just going to crush your own enthusiasm. And in the world of entrepreneurship, it's a marathon grind. So as long as you're managing those expectations realistically and being honest with yourself, you can really prevent some up and down roller coaster rides of emotion in this. I'm a super emotional guy when it comes to my business. I have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think I could have prevented some burnout stages had I definitely managed those expectations. Another big one for me is being in a family with a wife and making sure I communicate extremely well to her. So she's always confident that the business will come first, or I'm sorry, the family will always come first. I said that backwards. My family always comes first over the business, no matter what. And family time is always a priority. I did that from the beginning. I'm glad I did. I watched so many of my fellow entrepreneur friends going through these stages of their business growing, not communicating, and their significant others ended up kind of resenting the business. And so that created a ton of issues in the long run for them. I was fortunate to kind of see that in the beginning. And so just communicate with your family what's going on. If you can get them involved, great, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen. But just so everyone has a good expectation.
And Andrew, we did
Yeah,
on that last slide, we had a question come in from John,
sure.
referencing your number 2 point. He said,
Oh yeah.
did you do a market analysis to see what the demand might be for your business? Tell us more
Okay,
about
yeah.
how you tested the market.
Fantastic question, because I am a story of what not to do here. Again, this is me just blindly like running through a jungle, not knowing where I'm going, right? So I took a hobby that I was passionate about and created a business before I really analyzed my market. My niche shaving market is extremely saturated. And so I jumped into a saturated market right off the bat, which created a lot of new problems for me. Um, I do not recommend that. As much as I love what I do and have, I think if I went about it a different way, I could have set myself up for better early success. A great way to test the market, if I could have gone back in time, I would have manufactured maybe like 100 units and then tried to see if I could get a bunch of influencers to like push them a little bit, right? So I'd give, let's say, 20 units away and see how many units are sold just purely on their followership, whatever that is. That's something I probably should have tried to do. One other thing that I did, which was a good thing, was I found an internet forum. So I'm like building my business, I'm getting my product. I was like, where are the early adopters for my product category? And I found this forum called Badger and Blade. And there's like 100,000 people on this forum, but they're probably the most hardcore shaving enthusiasts you'll ever find. For example, they'll take a razor blade, put it under a microscope and measure the microns of how sharp a blade is, right? So I reached out to them and I would just kind of write a bunch of bloggy content in this forum, inviting scrutiny and inviting like free product testing. So I gave a lot of product away and got a lot of good feedback. And what I mean by good feedback is they gave me a lot of negative feedback. So like they were able to identify all these problems that my product had, that me being the business owner, I'm doing product development, I'm the content creator, I'm customer service, I'm logistics, making sure my supply chain is good, missed these really critical pieces. So I'm really glad that I found these early adopters, and they helped realign my trajectory to my priorities, because they were able to identify all these problems, right? Like small things I would never thought about. I won't go into like details. It's not that interesting probably, but I hope that kind of sheds a little bit of light how I poorly entered my market and then successfully entered my market, and things that I did early on. So if I could just go back in time, I would just pretty much dive all into the influencers and also this forum a little bit more, and really nurtured that community. Okay, so I'm going to move on unless you got any more questions.
Nope, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to start your business. You want to focus on your service or product, grow that, but you've got to have some income, right? And so the way I was able to successfully grow my business is today I have about 90 to 95% of my entire operation is automated. Every system that I built from day one, I thought about scalability. So I could send 10 units this week or 1,000 units this week. What do I need in place to make that happen? And so I'm fortunate to have started a business in the age of like Shopify and WordPress, where there are just entire huge ecosystems of apps that help you do this. So I probably use 30 or 40 different apps to do little things, help me automate everything from when you shop on my website to purchasing, pick, pack, ship, retarget market, or like PPC ads, um, follow-up communication, reviews. I mean, the list goes on. If anything you can have someone else do or have like the machine do, the AI stuff with automation, build your business around it, because it'll allow you to focus on growing your business instead of working the business. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is just, I've got a little bit of stuff that I can't automate, customer service stuff, although there's a lot of automation you can do in there. Sometimes every week I'll get different questions, right? Different things. So over time, you can identify what questions they are and then have auto response programs to respond for you based on like keywords in an email, for example. And so that's like something new I'm rolling out right now, but the more you can automate, the better. That way you can focus on growth and stuff like that. And it's expensive. Don't fool yourself that you're going to do all this for free. It takes money to make money, and that's no joke, especially as a self-funded startup, when it's like your money, your butt on the line. It's not some bank. I avoid, credit card debt when I can, but you definitely have the ebb and flow of using credit and debts and stuff like that. There's some that could be a whole nother webinar talking about how to manage that, your cash flow and stuff. All right, here's something that I am good at and not good at. So create a business plan, even if it's one page. That would be a huge tip that will help you in the long run. I'm very good at many things, but one thing I'm not good at is marketing and ads and stuff like that. And so I have like a business plan except for marketing, and that had to come later, right? I really nailed that down about a year ago, and it's really helped me focus on what's important and what's urgent, and anything else just goes to someone I pay, a contractor, or I have like 8 or 9 contractors right now, right? So they always come back with questions, because no one's going to know your business like you. And so your business plan kind of is something that you can create and give to your contractors or employees or whoever you have, and be like, oh, you need to understand the brand voice and tone. Like, here's this part of the business plan that describes all of it in great detail. I think today my business plan is like 60 pages, but don't let that intimidate you. Just start small, just start with one page. And if you Google one-page business plan, there's like all these great templates that kind of put it in perspective for you of what you need to focus on. But if you have that day one or early on, it kind of sets you up for long-term success. Because remember, this process is a marathon, not a sprint. And because you only may have a few hours a day, like I do, to actually work on the business. So having a guide that you build for yourself is going to be important, because right now I can tell you I have about 30 different Battle Brothers tasks, like ongoing projects, and about 25 projects on my day job. So there's no possible way that I can contextually switch to all of those 50 ongoing projects. It'd be impossible, right? So a plan really helps narrow down what's important versus what's urgent and stuff like that. All right, here's a big one. I wouldn't be here today had I not had several mentors. Mentors, man, it's like a cheat code in business. It's the best. So, all right, so how do you get mentors? Where do you find mentors? Well, one, Davenport has a mentorship program that I highly recommend. 2, there are tons of nonprofit organizations all over the country with successful business people that are just begging to find mentors. There are so many out there. So find a couple that you fit into in terms of like the mission, because each one has a slightly different mission. For me, there are several entrepreneurship mentoring programs for veterans. And so I tapped into a couple of those, and today, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and I still am in contact with some of them. And each mentor that I have is kind of an expert in their own field. And most mentors don't just become one. And what I mean by that is I will reach out to some, I might reach out to 10 and only have one relationship kind of become long-term. And the best way to do that is to have just a little bit of traction. I had a website, I had a couple sales, I looked good. And so I'd be like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Do you have 20 minutes that I could ask you about blank? Because I see you're really doing well on it, on your business or whatever you're doing. And most of the time they'd say, yeah, sure. I'd love to just share and learn. And so we'd talk for 30 or 40 minutes. And, sometimes that would be it. Other times it'd be like, hey, I want you to read this book, because they'll identify things that you're saying that they may have solved and kind of offer a solution. And through this process, I learned like there are tons of people that want to help you. Just don't ever assume people will be your mentor. You have to kind of let them offer it. That was really key. Early on, I was trying to be like, hey, would you be my mentor? And like you could see right away, people like, oh, because they're thinking that's a huge responsibility. They're an entrepreneur. Their time is limited already. They're slammed. They don't want to just take on that responsibility unless they offer. So, but I've had incredible changes to my business and to me personally with perspective change through mentorship. So that should be like number one on my list, but really starting is number one. Another huge thing early on for me was I attended a lot of pitches. So like think of them like mini Shark Tanks. In my local city here, Grand Rapids, there were several. I know Davenport at the time had some entrepreneurship clubs, other universities in my local area. But I know that these organizations are like in every city. They're all over the place. Investors are always looking for the next thing. And so for a couple grand, you get to pitch for a couple minutes. They have a panel of judges and they kind of, nice. They're very kind about their questions and challenges to your business, right? Everyone's there to help you grow. And every once in a while, you might win. I ended up winning probably 4 out of 5. I got like $30,000 in seed money. And I once lost a competition, but then was invited by a member who in the audience who ran another pitch organization that was private. And so then I got to go to the private pitch and ended up winning, I think, second place or something there. And, got to rub elbows with some influential people. And so, you learn so much of those pitch events, as stressful as it might be for some people who don't like to talk or present. It's incredibly important to go through a process to organize your thoughts and your business. And early on, that was like a rocket booster to my business. Not just the seed money. Yeah, the seed money was nice. In a product business, early on, you have to hold so much of your capital and inventory, which can be really challenging. And so consistently scrutinizing my business was great, because I had so many judges ask questions, I never thought of, right? Again, you're in the weeds. You've got too much to do, right? So I remember one time this judge is like, what's your cost of acquisition for customers? Like in my head, I'm like, I have no idea what my cost of acquisition is. It was very early on. It's something I never thought about. So that really changed, like, oh, I should really know what I'm spending in ads to acquire customers. And it wasn't too bad, but not having that actual number, kind of made me look pretty bad in that presentation, and that's okay. It's all part of the growth process, right? Last but not least, have thick skin. You might have the next unicorn idea, which means $1 billion business, but people are going to hate on it. My own family hated on my idea when I first would talk about it. They just didn't get it. This is when Harry's and Dollar Shave Club were just exploding, and they were just all the rage. But it's like, well, those aren't my customers. But because my product was so niche, it was hard for people who didn't understand that product to, like, why would you do that? So have thick skin. People are going to tear you up, and you just got to remember, it's not personal, it's just business. the military really helped me have some thick skin, but uh, you know, that's a big one, because if you're sensitive to it and if you have too much ego in your business, then it's going to set you back, emotionally. And so if you're not careful, I want to just kind of highlight, like, just remember, not everyone's going to like your idea. Not everyone will think it's a good idea, but that doesn't mean it's not a good idea. That just means they don't understand the value proposition of your business. So those are kind of like some 10 things, if I really understood in the beginning, that I just kind of wanted to share. I don't know how much of this will relate to the audience here, but if you want me to dive into anything else or share more personal stories, I mean, honestly, all 10 of these could probably be an hour long, with context and stories and learning opportunities.
Well, Andrew, I'm gonna thank you so much. I'm gonna put this out there. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to come off of mute, or I've got that chat function open. Also, while I wait to see if any questions trickle in, Andrew, if folks are interested in your product, where could they go find it?
Oh yeah, so I'm on battlebrothers.com. They make great gifts. I'm not really here trying to sell my product or anything. Eventually, when I have more time, I want to really share in greater detail how I did what I did, and like spill all the secrets of starting a business while having an 18-month-old baby with a second on the way, flipping a house, working full time, having a social life. It's just all about creating efficiencies and creating systems and processes. And I am really not a system process guy, but it is absolutely required when you have so many responsibilities that you have to juggle. So
Yeah.
I hope some people
Yeah, so we've got a
get out of
couple
this.
questions that have
Hit
come in
me.
now, which I was hoping for. So, Michelle asks, how or when did you start to add employees?
Yeah, good question. So technically, I don't have any paid employees. I just am hiring like contract workers or like other firms. For example, if your business requires like Google, Facebook, Amazon pay-per-click ads, unless you are a subject matter expert in that realm, hire someone. That's something that I've spent tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPC ads. And had I just spent, I don't know, $700 a month, which may seem high now, but their whole purpose in life is to take, $1 turn to $3, and so it kind of ends up paying for itself. And if, as long as your messaging is on point, your branding's on point, and you can target the right customer segment, that's going to be critical. So hire the more comfortable you are hiring out parts of your business, the faster it will grow, the more money you'll make. It might sound counterintuitive because you're looking at all these expenses, but right now I think I have nine contractors, and I don't use them every day. Some I use every day. Some, like my accountant, I only use a couple times a year. I've got a warehouse team that I pay to pick, pack, ship. They do all of that stuff. It only costs a couple dollars, a 3PL, a couple dollars per order. You can find creative ways to leverage other services and stuff. And sometimes you can talk a business into doing something they weren't planning on doing, by just being open to, as long as you can pitch them ideas. But I'm not going to try to go down that road. I feel like I'm getting on a tangent here, but I think right from the beginning, early on, I hired 3 or 4 people to do different parts, marketing, like creating content for social media. I hired, my CPA and PPC people, and you'll flip around, and some will be good and some will be bad. And the reason I did that was to stay agile and thin, or slim, I mean, because I also don't pay myself. I recognize the amount of money that I could pay myself. If it went back into the business, it fuels the growth exponentially quicker. So, as I'm not going to say it's easy. This path I'm on is extremely hard and extremely stressful if my alignment with all of my systems and process get out of whack and get, so got to make
Yeah,
sure I stay on track.
sure. We have a couple more that come in.
Yeah, sorry. I'll
No,
try to keep them
you're
a little more
fine. This
pithy.
fantastic information. Lisa asked this question, but she also just said you might have just answered it a little bit in
Oh,
there.
okay.
She had said, "What are the best resources for automating a business? There are many solicitors out there, but how do you know who you can trust?"
Great question. I probably get multiple solicitations every single day. A couple times I was on a whim, be like, okay, let's do it. You're a random person. Let's see where this goes. 100% of the time, that's not worked out for me. I'm not saying that will happen to you. That's not what I'm saying. It just never worked out for me for multiple reasons. How do you automate the business? So that's really hard. It depends on what your business is. If you're going to try sell a product, well, there are 10,000 different apps that do all sorts of different things. I started on WordPress, which is a website platform, because it's the cheapest, but requires the most upkeep and maintenance. And after a year, I switched to Shopify, and I cannot recommend that enough. The amount of things Shopify gets right. Yes, it costs more, maybe 3 or 4 times more, depending on what you need, right? For me, it costs many times more because I have so many systems, but I don't have to worry about it. The customer service on Shopify for me is fantastic when I have a website issue. I highly recommend paying that little extra bit. It goes a long way there. And then just Google what you're looking to automate, and you'll be surprised. The problem will then turn into, there are so many options for the issue that I have. How do I sort through it? So, and that's just going to kind of come down to what your needs are and what is important to you. Most of these apps have a free or very small starting plan. And so Shopify is a great way to go.
Perfect. We've got 2 more questions, and they are on the same idea. So Lisa wanted to know, how did you find the pitch competitions? And then Sasha wanted to know, how did you prepare your pitch decks?
Yeah, great question. Very, very good questions, both of them, because I found mine. This is good. I'm trying to keep this answer to like anyone in the country could do this, but in Grand Rapids, Michigan, when I was at Davenport, I was in an entrepreneurship club where they kind of opened my eyes to, there were like 4 or 5 companies in Grand Rapids where they did one's called 5x5. There was GR Current, there's M West, Michigan, something. There's all these competitions. Just type in pitch competition in your city, or another name for it would be incubators. So like startup incubators is a key like search term that, I've been kind of all over the Midwest traveling to these different places. If you're a veteran, there's Bunker Labs. They have them. They have tons of them, all sorts of kinds. Some are just for women, some are just for veterans, some are for everybody. There's different stuff. And then through there, you network with a lot of influential people, and they all kind of know each other and all go to these pitch competitions. So just don't be afraid to ask questions and network and be a social butterfly. I'm a huge introvert. I'm a very introverted person. So I have to like really come out of my shell to and honestly, a lot of this comes down to, do people like you at these events, right? If you're going to be quiet and stale, you're not dressed well, your presentation's weak, that all plays into it. It's a bit of a game. And one pitch competition may have completely different grading criteria than the next. And the judges are going to place what's important to one judge may not be important to the next judge. Some judges will offer you the reward or the winner based on how quick they can turn around that cash for their business profit, instead of what's the best idea. I've heard the best ideas lose because they weren't quick to market. It's going to take too long. And so the judges didn't like that. So you thick skin on those things. Every single time the judges have been kind and nice, even when they find mistakes or, so don't let that scare you. And then how do you present or how do you prepare your pitch deck? You want to make sure you read the pitch competition rules very closely, and because likely they're going to tell you exactly what they're grading for and exactly how long it needs to be. And so then you can then say, okay, I need to hit these 5 points. I wrote a script and I would practice it for hours, the same script. And one time I won first place at a grand prize at this big competition, and I totally messed up my presentation. Like I choked. I completely forgot what I was saying, like mid-sentence. It was like an embarrassing, like everyone was like, whoa, oh no. I still won because it's not about how well you present. It's about the context that you're presenting and how well you can describe the value of your business. So all that to say, it will be in the pitch deck, and practice and get on PowerPoint. Here's a tip. Here, check this out. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, so you got your presentation, right? I use like a pre-made template, but if you go here, and a lot of people don't know this might be like, how do you find, oh great, now I can't show you here, design. And then if I delete this, it's gonna pop up designer. Why isn't designer popping? Okay, this right here, designer. It will format really cool and creative artsy presentations for you based on the context of what's in here. I'm trying to get it to trigger. And of course it's not triggering, which is always what happens when you're trying to represent it. And it triggers when you change things on your site, but it's not happening. Great. All right, I tried to show you something cool on the fly, and of course it didn't work. But this designer thing, I literally won a presentation because I made a presentation with a white background, hit designer, chose the one I like, and it looked so good. They were so impressed. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, they know where to find it in PowerPoint now, Andrew.
Yeah. And
well,
I will say,
yeah,
I'll stop right there. I could just keep going. It's a very passionate subject of mine.
Well, we so appreciate it. I do want to respect everyone's time. We are a couple
me too.
minutes
I'm sorry I went over.
No, you got lots and lots of kudos in the chat box there, so I will share those with you later on. Thank you everyone for joining us. As I mentioned before, this is recorded. We will have it up on our Davenport Dialogues website in the next week or so. Thank you everyone, and please go to our Davenport Dialogues website to check out our upcoming events. And Andrew, I can't say thank you enough, and good luck going into the holiday season and with a new little one on the way.
Thanks. Super excited.
Have a great day, everyone.